Hello and good evening, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us here today for the year program presentation on the 2022-2023 cycle. I'd just like to first thank the American Center in Moscow for kindly providing us the platform to speak to you all today. My name is Zoe and I work here on the year program. I'm also joined by my colleague Vitali, who will speak a bit later on in the presentation, as well as a current year finalist, Yana, who will speak about her experience studying at the University of North Georgia. So before we get started with the presentation, I'd just like to say that we're joined by well over 200 participants here today, which is really great to see so many of you interested in the program. At the end of the presentation, we're going to have a quick question and answer session. So if you do have any questions or comments that come up during the presentation, please feel free to write them in the chat box on Facebook or YouTube, and we'll get to them at the end of the presentation. So before we begin, just going to quickly go over what we're going to cover today. So we'll do a quick overview of the program. We'll cover funding and stipend. We'll go over the eligibility requirements, as well as touch on some of the application package and process for applying. As I mentioned, you'll hear from current year finalist Yana, who will speak about her experience in the program. And lastly, we'll have time for the question and answer session. So as many of you are probably familiar with, the year program or Year of Exchange in America for Russians program is a once in a lifetime opportunity for Russian undergraduate students to come and study in the United States. And the goal of the program really is to promote mutual understanding between the people of the United States and Russia through this academic year-long exchange experience. So participants are really supported in also developing a really deep understanding of American culture and society throughout the program, as well as improving their own academic and professional development skills throughout the time. So as you can imagine, it's definitely a very busy year, and there's many benefits to participating in the year program. So not only will you have a chance to experience American campus life, but you're also going to be able to make lasting connections with American students, other year participants, as well as developing your professional development skills and skill set to develop your future professional goals. And it's also a really amazing opportunity for you to act as a cultural ambassador by sharing your own Russian culture with American people while you're in the United States. And at the end of the program, you'll have the chance to join the US Government Alumni Exchange Network. So next, I'd just like to briefly touch on some of the academic components of the program. So coming to the United States, students do enroll as full-time students at either a community college or university, taking at least 2 courses in their field of study, as well as one American Studies course to learn more about American society and culture. So students do study at either community colleges or universities, and the program partners with those institutions all across the United States. And you're probably wondering what the difference is between a community college and a university. So community college, if you're not familiar with, typically offers 2-year degrees that are a bit more focused on technical areas of study. So for example, if you're studying STEM or IT, these degrees can typically be found at a community college. And typically, community colleges offer smaller class sizes, so between 12 and 15 people, but is a lot nicer because you do have more student-teacher interaction within your classes. But you're also going to find a lot of diversity amongst the students and the professors that you're taking classes with. And for universities, you should all be pretty familiar with this. It's pretty similar to the Russian universities that you attend back home. So they offer 4-year degrees. They're typically a bit larger. Sometimes courses could have between 150 to 300 people per course, and they offer a bit more area of study. But same as community colleges, you're going to find a lot of diversity amongst the students that you are taking courses with. So there are some differences and similarities between community colleges and universities, but you're still going to find a lot of diversities in terms of nationalities and backgrounds with the students that you're studying with, which really adds to the benefit of the program. So next, your students do participate in different extracurricular and cultural activities, which really helps to benefit their experience in the program. So your students are required to participate in volunteering hours and participating in community service activities, as well as participating in clubs and organizations in the local community. So for example, many students choose to volunteer at animal shelters, assist the elderly, or work at food banks. These students, as you could see, from University of North Alabama, participated in a trash and litter cleanup on their campus, which is really great to see. As part of the program, you'll also have the opportunity to jointly make videos about your academic and cultural experience in the United States, as well as have the chance to connect with American host families to experience more about American society and daily life. So a lot of our year alumni and current year finalists have been able to connect with families for really fun activities like going to a baseball game or experiencing Halloween and Thanksgiving together, which is just a fantastic way to learn more about American daily life. So next, moving on to the funding and stipend, which is a big part of the program. So the program, as you know, is fully funded, and it does cover all program-related costs, including the J-1 visa and TOEFL examinations. So this, the funding itself does cover round-trip airfare from participants' hometown in Russia to the United States, and covers tuition and fees, as well as room and board, which is housing and meals. Participants receive a stipend, health insurance, as well as a book stipend for required course textbooks. And next, I'm just going to briefly touch on some of the eligibility requirements for the program. So as you could see, the program really does welcome all backgrounds and fields of study for those applying and participating in the program. We do strongly encourage students with disabilities to apply and participate in the program. Year alumni and current year participants come from all across Russia and from various diverse backgrounds, which really adds to the diversity of the program itself. And on the right side here, we just listed some of the eligibility requirements. I'm not going to read through them. They're also listed on our website. But I would just like to highlight that year applicants should be citizens of the Russian Federation between the ages of 18 to 20 years old. And participants should also be eligible to receive an international passport as well as a J-1 visa to be able to travel to the United States. And next, I'm going to turn it over to Vitaly to speak more on the application package and process.
Yeah, thanks very much, Zoe, and good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Very nice seeing you all here, and thank you for your interest into the program. So Zoe spoke briefly about the program, about the requirements and the eligibility criteria. In the next few slides, few minutes, I will speak about the application process because we get many questions. What should the application include? And what is the letter of recommendation? What is a transcript? And whether people need an international passport or not. So to familiarize yourself with the requirements, we would recommend going to the program's website, which is yearofexchange.org, and you will see the required documents that you need to include in the application. So the application itself will include the following elements. So first, each applicant must submit an online application, and the link to the online application can be found on our program website. The second element of the application is an essay statement of interest, which is basically a statement describing your motivation to participate in the program. So this is a very short statement, up to 500 words. So you have to be a little bit creative and to describe your motivation, why you want to participate in the program, and how the program will benefit for your professional goals. The next element of the application is a resume. And this is the area where we get most questions. What is a resume? So I will speak briefly in the next slides. The next important documents are the official transcripts. And we also receive many questions about the official transcript, so I will stop in more details in the next slides. And the other element that is required, it is a letter of recommendation. So each applicant must attach at least one letter of recommendation to be considered for the program. And finally, each applicant should upload a copy of the international passport. Ideally, we would prefer to have a copy of the international passport, But many students, many applicants ask us if they don't have an international passport, what should they upload? So in case you don't have an international passport at this moment, you don't have to make a passport now, but you can upload the internal passport. But if you become a finalist, please be prepared to get an international passport in time for the visa. And one important element I would like to highlight is the deadline. So application deadline is November 30th, 2021. And we would strongly encourage you to take your time to work on the application well in advance. So don't leave it for the last moment. Don't leave it for November 30th, 11 p.m. to submit the application. Because as you can see, there are a number of documents that you have to upload, and it takes time for you to collect these documents. And you don't want to get into a situation when you come on November 29th or November 30th and you're missing a document and you cannot upload. And in this case, your application will be incomplete and it will not be reviewed. So please go on the website, read the requirements, start collecting the documents, and have it all ready. And maybe sometimes submit the application before November 30th, so to avoid any potential technical issues. So with this, so I can move to the next slide. So as I mentioned, one of the most important area we get questions is the resume. So here we took a resume sample from the internet, and there are many templates of resume. So we as a program, we do not require a specific template. So the one that you see here on the screen, it is a sample. It's a template, but it is not required by the program. We just think this describes very briefly what a resume should be. Sometimes resume is considered in Russia autobiography or autobiography. They are not quite the same, but pretty close, let's say, because in autobiography, you would have to write in a narrative way your biography. The resume, on the other hand, should be a very short, concise document of 1 up to 2 pages, maximum 2 pages, I would say, which will provide a brief description about your academic and professional accomplishments. So think about the resume of a document. When the reviewer looks at it, he reads it for 3-4 minutes, and the reviewer gets an impression about your personality, what you have accomplished in terms of education, what you have accomplished in terms of professional development too. So normally, what would the resume include? So first, and very important, is the name, first and last name, and the contact information. The resume usually does not include the date of birth. And I know that in our part of the world, we include the date of birth in the resume. But normally for the applications for the year program, we do not encourage including the date of birth in the resume. Second is the academic background. In the academic background, applicants will include here their high school or lyceum information, as well as the name of their university they are currently studying. So the high school and university you will include here under the education. There can be different sections, and you can name it differently based on your preferences. So some people may include, like, for example, work history. Some may include as a community service. Somebody may include as volunteering experience. So if you volunteered in your local community, please feel free to include this information in your resume with the description of your volunteering activities. Next element is the language skills. So if you speak different foreign languages, you can include those languages here under separate section as languages. And you can include English, for example, proficient or intermediate or beginner, or if you speak other languages, please feel free to include them here too. You can see in this template resume, there is a section honors and distinctions. People include this way. You can include also awards and scholarships. So if you received any scholarships, you can include here too. Or if you participate in different academic competitions like Olympiads, you can include those here too. And finally, also the resume would include publications. So if you have a blog, video blog, or if you have an academic paper, academic research paper, you can include them here too. So finally, we would say be creative, but be creative when you create a resume, but try not to exceed too many pages that resume. As I mentioned earlier, the resume should be a very concise document of 1-2 pages that will provide a brief description about your academic and professional background. So the next one is the letter of recommendation. So as I mentioned, each application should include at least one letter of recommendation. And the question we receive very often is, who should write the letter of recommendation? The letter of recommendation should be an academic one, a professional one. So it can be written by anyone who can speak about your academic and professional skills. It cannot be written by a member of your family or a relative. So please don't ask your parents, your mother, father to write the letter of recommendation. It has to be a professor, or it has to be an employer if you're working for that employer. If you ask for a recommendation, for a suggestion whether to go with a letter of recommendation from an academic, from a teacher, or from an employer, I would recommend going with the academic letter because you're applying for academic program. And your applications will be reviewed by academics, by professors who are teaching at American colleges. So they will probably would be interested to see your academic accomplishments, your academic skills. And that's why our recommendation would be to go with a letter of recommendation from a professor, but it's in the end, it's up to you who you decide to request a letter of recommendation. Again, the letter of recommendation should be also pretty short, 1, maximum 2 pages. And the biggest question probably we receive is, what should the letter of recommendation include? So definitely the letter of recommendation should include the name of the person who is writing the letter of recommendation. It should include the contact information, their title, if they are doctors or professor, and affiliation, if they have any affiliation. So if they are professor at a university, they should include that affiliation in the letter of recommendation. Should the letter of recommendation include a stamp or not? It is up to the person who is writing the letter of recommendation. If they want, they can include that stamp in the letter of recommendation, but the stamp is not required. The most important is the letter of recommendation will include that as, again, the name, contact information, title, and institution affiliation. So this is briefly about the letter of recommendation. The next one is the transcripts. And transcripts, sometimes people will ask, what is transcript? And if I'm a first-year student, what kind of transcript should I upload? So each applicant should upload both Russian transcripts and translation of the Russian transcripts in English. So if you're second or third year student at a Russian university, please upload your transcript from the university. So if you're second year student, please upload your entire transcript for the first year. So this would be in Russia выписка об успеваемости, справка об успеваемости, или зачетная книжка, if we say it in Russian. If you are third year student, please include all your grades, all your transcripts for the first and second year. Now, the question is, what should the first year students upload? Because they don't have any exams yet. So their exam is coming in December or January. So they don't have a transcript, university transcript. In this case, first year students, they will upload their high school diploma. In other words, in Russia, школьный аттестат. So you will upload the cover, the attestat, and the grades, or оценки, as we say in Russian. So this is with the transcript. So once you upload the Russian version of the transcript, either зачетка, справку об успеваемости, you need to translate these documents into English and upload. Does it have to be official translated? Not necessarily. So you can confirm the translation at the department of your department or your university. You can translate it in an office of translation. But very importantly, these transcripts do not have to be authenticated at a notary. So you don't have to go to a notary to confirm the translation. It is sufficient the translation from the office of translation or at the university. So here, after speaking about the application, I would like to touch briefly about application stages and to know what to expect. So as I mentioned, the application deadline is November 30th, 2021. So take your time in advance to submit the application. Once you submit the application, we start reviewing the applications and we have a panel of reviewers. And usually application will be reviewed by professors who work at American colleges. So the application process takes some time because we receive many applications. So in December and January, the program will review applications. After the applications, the people, at least half the applicants will be invited for a virtual interview in January and February. And after the interview, the program will select the finalists and alternate candidates who will be invited for the TOEFL test, which will be very quickly after the interview, so in January, February. Based on the TOEFL test and your application package and the interview, the program starts working with host institutions working on your placement. And the placement should be completed by May 2022. And after May 2022, once students are placed at hosting institutions, we start working on the visa, which is tentatively scheduled for June, July, and in August, finalists are expected to travel to the United States. So these are the stages, the timeline for applicants, and happy to go with the questions. But at this point, I would like to ask one of our students who is currently in US studying at University of North Georgia, Yana, to speak about her experience in the United States and speak about herself. So Yana, please.
Thanks, Vitaly. I hope I'm not glitching too much because apparently live stream with more than 200 viewers is a bit too much for university Wi-Fi. But anyway, I'm Yana, and right now I'm studying in a very warm state, Georgia, in the United States, with very hospitable people, which I'm really enjoying it here. And well, I can say for myself that in Russia, my major is law. But what I like about your program in particular is that it allows us not only take courses which are related to our major, and I'm currently taking business law, for example, but I'm also studying here French and American political theory, which is also very exciting, at least for me. And what I also like about this program is that this is a really great opportunity to connect with not only American, but international students as well. So for example, one of my closest friends here is from Korea, and because of her, I've started learning Korean language, which I have never thought I will be doing, actually. And well, with American and international students, we are participating in different activities, including volunteering activities. So you can see on the fourth floor photo on the slide that it's actually the event of Sustainability Club, which I'm a part of here in University of North Georgia. And it's actually run by another international student, Anna, who's Danish. And we did a lake sweep event where we collected litter from the lake and made the place really beautiful and safe for people of the community. And I guess that last thing I want to mention is that me and other year students in university, we are working closely with the Russian department here. This department is teaching Russian here in the university for American students, and they ask us to give us presentations about our hometowns and also help American students with tutoring who are learning Russian language. And for example, you can see on this slide that I'm giving presentation about my hometown, which is Volgograd. So well, hello to all Volgograds who are now watching the presentation. So I guess that from my part, this is all. So I will be staying, I guess, for a bit for Q&A session and answer any questions you may have. And now I'm giving the floor to Zoe.
Thank you so much, Yana. It's so nice to hear about your experience throughout the past semester at University of North Georgia. So as I mentioned, we're going to move on to the question and answer portion of the presentation. But before I do so, I would just like to, again, thank you to the American Center in Moscow for providing us the opportunity to speak to you all and answer all of your questions. But if there are any questions or anything that comes up after the presentation that we don't have time to answer, please feel free to reach out to us at info@yearofexchange.org. Or go onto our website at yearofexchange.org. There's a lot of information about the program. You could read about current year participants' experiences and what they've been up to over the past couple months, as well as detailed information on the eligibility requirements, submitting an application, and some frequently asked questions in case there's something that's not answered for you here today. So now I'm going to turn it over to Caroline to please read us the first question.
Thank you, Zoe. So we have one question about eligibility from Paulina. Is it possible to apply if I have dual citizenship? Russian is the first one.
Sure, I could take this question. Yeah, so we do have dual citizens that apply to the program. As long as you are a citizen of the Russian Federation, you are eligible to participate in the program.
Perfect. So we have several questions about documents. So Nikita writes, what should be written in the resume?
Well, I can go briefly. I'll probably go again with the resume. So can we go to that slide? Just one second. So as I mentioned, the resume is it should be very brief, 1-2 pages, and it should include a brief description about your education, academic background, as well as any volunteering or professional background. So normally the resume will include your first and last name. It will include some information about your education. So if you completed the education of your high school or university you're studying, so you will include under that section as the academic background education. You can name it in different ways. It's up to you the way you like it, you can name it. If you volunteer in your communities or somewhere, yeah, you can put your volunteering experience here too. If you have work experience, you can include that work experience in the resume too. If you have academic accomplishments, for example, if you participated in any Olympiads, you can include those results here, accomplishments, Olympiads here. If you have any awards or scholarships received, you can include that too. If you speak different foreign languages, you can include here too. And as well as if you have any publications, you can include those publications here too in the resume. Again, I wanted to stress out that we do not require a specific template. The program does not. You can use any template you can find on the internet and to upload on the platform. If you decide to submit the resume in the form of autobiography as a narrative text, it is also fine because the reviewers, they know that applicants are coming from Russia, and that's sometimes the format people would write their autobiography. So I think this is briefly what we would say would include in a resume, but again, be creative. The resume would be a document that when the reviewers look at the document, they say, yes, this is a great candidate. We want this person in the program. So try to think what to include that you think will make you a strong candidate for the program.
Perfect. Thank you, Vitaly. So continuing on, Another question about documents. Russian high school graduates are given the certificate and an appendix to the certificate with the transcript of a final grades. I was wondering if you could tell me how to send these documents because only one file can be attached.
Well, yes. If you look into the application, if you go to the application, you can attach one document, but there's also other documents. And maybe I'll do a demo shortly, but there are different sections you can upload in different sections. But the easiest way is to combine these documents in the PDF format and to upload on the platform. The good part is with the platform, there is no limit in terms of size of the document. So you can upload big documents to the application, to your application.
Thank you, Vitaly. Another question about documents. What documents from their universities should second-year students provide?
Yeah, I think if you are a second-year student, yeah, you would provide, I'll say it in Russian, справка об успеваемости или зачетная книжка. And for your first year of studies. So not only for the summer session, but for the winter session too. So winter and summer session exams. Yeah. Yana, you were a second-year student, I believe, when you applied. I don't know if you still remember how you dealt with the documents when you applied. Did you get the spravka об успеваемости from your home university, or you had to translate? Maybe you can share some of your experience with you.
Yeah, sure. So I was indeed a sophomore or a second-year student, and as far as I remember, I was submitting зачетная книжка or transcript, and please note that it should be in English, and also that you should submit all of your grades which you have at this point. So yeah, like different institutions have different procedures, and actually but I strongly encourage you to find out whether you can do all of this process in your home institute. For example, I didn't know that, but my dean of my faculty told me that actually we have the international center which deals with all of this stuff. So eventually I did it, I guess, like in 10 or 15 minutes. So I just manually translated all of my grades and all subjects all courses I had. And the woman in the international center just signed that this is official, this is legit, and made a stamp on the document, and that's it. So you should just make your research on that, and you'll be fine.
Yana, you raised a great point here, and I would like to highlight. Please check with your home university in Russia if they can provide an English version of your grades, of your transcript. And we know some schools provide, for example, High School of Economics, they definitely provide a transcript in English. So you don't have to go and translate. So check with your home university if the university is providing you an English version or international standards, as Yana has mentioned. Good point, Yana.
Thank you, Vitaly. The next question is it okay that academic hours are not mentioned on my transcript?
Do you want to take it, or I can take it? I can.
Sure.
Yeah. So yeah, at this point, yeah, you it's okay if that's the transcript that the school is issuing. Yeah, the transcript. So that's perfectly fine. What may happen, for example, when we start working on the placement, depending on schools in the US, the American college may require the number of hours, so that in order to transfer you to that American college. If that is the case, then we as a program, we may follow up with the applicant and to provide additional information. And in that case, you would go to your home university, to the Russian university, to include that information if it's missing from the transcript. But again, as colleges in Russia are different, each college has different requirements. The same applies to American colleges. Each college has its own requirements. For some, it may be perfectly fine, having not the number of hours. Other colleges will require the academic hours. So depending on the college where you will be going in the US.
All right, thank you, Vitaly. And then one final question about documents. Should I write only about the official jobs I've had?
That's a good question. It's, as I mentioned, yeah, resume is your own document. It's your creation, let's say, yeah. So you decide what you want to include in the resume. What probably would be like a recommendation: include the information that is relevant, that you think would be relevant for the program, would make you a good candidate, would make you to stand out among those candidates. Because as I mentioned here, we receive a lot of applications. Last year we received close to 700, and it's very competitive. So try to be very creative when you're making the resume so that you stand out and include the information that you think is relevant. If you think that information about your work experience is relevant and would make you a stronger candidate, definitely include into the resume. But it is your choice what kind of information you want to include in the resume. We can come only with a suggestion and a recommendation.
Thank you, Vitaly. We received a question about disabilities. Who can be considered a student with a disability? Do I need a certificate of disability, or is it just about physical impairment?
Sure, I could take this question. Yeah, so this is a very good question because as we mentioned during the beginning of the presentation, we do strongly encourage students that have disabilities to apply for the program. You know, we have your alumni and current year students that are students with disabilities. Within the application itself, we do have a disclosure section for you to include what types of disabilities that you have, but the program doesn't, you know, discriminate against any types of students that have specific disabilities or, you know, don't have different specific disabilities. So we would just ask you to please include that information within the application, and we don't ask for any type of documentation or proof of that. It's just something that will, you know, be in communication with you about throughout the application process to ensure that you receive any types of accommodation within the application. If you need any accessibility, if there's any accessibility concerns within the interview stage, or traveling to the United States or within your host campus, it's very good for us to be in communication with you to ensure that we have all the necessary information to provide you an accessible and enjoyable experience in the U.S. So we just ask that you be you know, open in the application about what your you know, your disabilities are, so we could work with you on that.
Just here to add on disability, I think very important, as Zoe mentioned here, we strongly encourage people with disabilities to apply. And we know that some people with disability, they may feel like about challenges they may face traveling in the overseas, traveling in the United States, whether they will manage. And definitely the response here, you will manage, because first, we are partnering with Mobility International USA, which is the biggest organization, nonprofit in US, that provides support to persons with disabilities. Second, all universities, all colleges, even community colleges in the US, they have great resources on campus to support persons with disabilities. So people with disability have very good conditions to study. So definitely, if persons with disabilities should not be discouraged, but they should rather encouraged to apply. And we encourage you to apply because both the program will support you during your endeavor, your experience in US, and colleges here in the United States too will provide all the support that you have a nice and good experience in the United States.
Thank you for that, Vitaly. So we have about 4 questions on recommendations. The first one is, should the recommendation be written in English or translated in English? And as a follow-up, can the recommendation letter be written in, immediately in English?
Sure, I could take this question. Yes, so I would say it could be written in either Russian or English, but if it is written in Russian, we would ask for a translation to be provided. And yes, it could immediately be written in English. I think that would be fine.
Thank you, Zoe. Are we supposed to have more than one recommendation letter?
Sure, I could take this one as well. So we do ask for just one recommendation letter, but we do have students that decide to get, 2 recommendation letters. So if it's something that you'd like to include, you could upload that in the additional upload section, but we do require at least one letter of recommendation.
Perfect. And so now, thank you, Zoe. We've gotten several questions about the selection process. So the first one is for Yana. Could you tell me, please, about your year interview experience? Was it stressful for you? What could you recommend to all applicants?
Yeah, I'm in the Zoom call. Sorry. Yeah, sorry about that. My interview was actually with Zoe, and I remember this experience. It was very good, and it was not stressful at all. And basically, what you will have either Zoe or Vitaly, and you'll also have probably like other people who will interview you, maybe 2. And one person will be from the academic background, and it was just, as far as I remember, it was quite a long time ago. However, it's just a very nice chat about your motivation and about your interests. What do you see doing in the United States, and whether you think that you will cope living like alone independently in the United States. And please do not worry about it. And it's not like, I don't know, I wouldn't compare it with the interview for a job application. So it's not like, this type of stress interviews, which I guess quite common nowadays now. So just, my main advice is just to be yourself. Please just show all your interviewers who you really are, what is your motivation, and you'll be fine.
And I can maybe jump in here too. So I did interview Yana, and I think a lot of our year finalists are just such exceptional candidates that the interview is such a wonderful process, and a very memorable experience. But yeah, it's nothing to be super stressed about. We really are just trying to get an understanding of your interest to participate in the program, some of your goals for studying in the US, and how you really see the program benefiting yourself. And it is just a short interview with us and some other teammate members that we have there, and usually a year alumni who's there to assist with any questions that you might have about your experience. So it's, as I said, nothing to be super stressed about. It's just really to get a better understanding of yourself, your accomplishments, and how you see yourself participating in the program.
Thank you, Zoe. So what achievements of an applicant will be taken into consideration?
Yeah, I guess I could jump in first here. It's a good question, and I think we've said this a couple times before, but I think no year candidate or participant is alike. The students that we work with really do come from a lot of diverse backgrounds across Russia. Like Yana's from Volgograd, we have a lot of students from across Russia that study in a lot of different backgrounds and majors, and have various interests and motivations for applying to the US. So we really take everything into consideration. Whether it be volunteer experience or work experience, or just your general interest in your pastimes. So feel free to include anything that you find would be relevant. We don't want you to think that only work experience or only professional accomplishments are things that we look for. We really do look for well-rounded candidates that have diverse backgrounds and an interest to participate and be a great representative of the year program. So there's no easy answer there, but I think generally that's what we look for.
Thank you, Zoe. And then another question, how many candidates were selected for year 5 and year 6, and how many candidates will we take approximately this time around?
I can answer this question. Well, yeah, year 5. Let's say currently we have in the US around 200 students. We have 100 for year 5, 100 year 6, plus minus. Let's say not going somewhere it's 103 or somewhere else. But overall, 200 students from 100 year 5, 100 year 6, and we try to stand around these numbers for the next application process.
Thank you, Vitaly. A question about getting visas. Regarding the current situation in Russia, do you provide any help with students receiving visas?
Yeah, I think, yeah, the program is, we are acting as a sponsor organization. As a sponsor, we are responsible to provide all the support for applicants to come to the United States. This includes visa interview. So we are providing the support, students guidance, how to submit the application, where to submit the application, and we are working here. The support is there, so we will work with all applicants to make sure that they receive visa in order to travel to the US. So the short answer is yes. The program is providing support to get the visa to travel to the US.
Okay, and one question about an English exam. Do we need to take a special English exam to take part in the program?
I could jump in with this question. So yes, as Vitaly mentioned during the application stage slide of the presentation, participants are required to take the TOEFL IBT examination to test your English language proficiency. American universities and community colleges do have requirements for English language proficiency, and the TOEFL examination is the most widely accepted one. But the program will provide, same as J1 visas, we provide assistance in providing the test and making accommodations for you to take it either online or in person.
Yeah, maybe Anna, who I think many applicants would be interested. I know for many applicants from Russia, they're stressed about the TOEFL. They think it's very hard. Maybe how was in your case when you submitted the TOEFL? Do you think is it easy? I think personally it's not easy. Sometimes it's more difficult for American people to take the TOEFL because TOEFL is designed for international person. But yeah, would be interesting in your experience.
Yeah, so, well, I will agree with you, Vitaly, that, well, it's not easy, but I wouldn't say that it's super hard. And this is something that you should like really be concerned about because, well, I guess that since, well, most of you, I guess that like are in colleges or on the last year of your high school, you have already taken or are about to take YIGA exam. So, like surprisingly enough, I would say that in terms of preparation is pretty much the same. So like you should be familiar with the structure of the exam. And this is like the key to success. So as long as you know what type of, applications and like exercises there are, you will be fine. So you just need to, well, my main advice would be just to, well, when you're preparing for exam, just do like tons of exercises. Now there are lots of free guides to TOEFL exam on the internet, which can be found like very easily. So you just need to go through different applications and exercises, do listening, do writing, like every day. So like I can say like from my experience that I have never taken TOEFL before. Well, I already have first certificate in English, which is the Cambridge system of language assessment. TOEFL is level much higher. However, my preparation was, like every day doing exercises, like test exercises. and I think I scored pretty high. So my score was more than 100, which is good because the highest is 120. So it's just, like your self-management, your preparation, and that's it. So just please do not be that stressful about it because everything is manageable.
Thank you, Yana, for that answer. We're going to move on to a couple questions about placement. Does the placement of the students, either in a community college or a university, depend on their preferences in their major in Russia?
Well, placement, it's a very complex process, I would say. So as you can imagine, yeah, having over 100 people on the program, I would say it's like building a puzzle. So there are a number of factors that are considered when doing the placement, and a number of criteria. So first is making sure diversity. Students go across all the United States. So they are not all located in one location in US, but they rather travel a place to colleges in different states across the United States. Second is their major. Of course, the program is looking into students' major, trying to make sure that the student is placed at the best college where they have a major that fits with their major in Russia. Because as Zoe mentioned, when you're studying in the US, you expect to take courses in your field of study. So we try, that's another criteria. Third criteria is also how students is performing at the interview and the English proficiency and the TOEFL. So many colleges have different requirements. For example, many colleges will have the requirement of 61, but other colleges will have the requirement of 80. For example, in the case of Yana mentioned, I think Yana mentioned 105, and the college is requiring, I believe, if I'm not wrong, 80%. So if somebody is scoring with 70, it's higher than 61, but it's lower than a university we are partnering, and the university will not accept someone with a score lower than 75. So we have to look at this criteria too. So, and of course, other criteria we try, of course, also diversity when we speak about Russian. So trying to make sure that students from Russia are placed in different colleges. So we don't have, let's say, at one college in the US, all students coming from one school in Russia, from one Russian school. So we have students representing different Russian schools and Russian regions, Russian cities, and so on. So that's why I would say it's a very complex, it's like a puzzle. It's not an easy one, I would say, a short answer to this. But yes, we take into account the major, students' major when we are doing the placement.
Perfect. And then I want to touch really quickly on some questions about COVID. What vaccine will be suitable to attend the program? Is it mandatory for participants to be vaccinated?
Yes, I would say, I don't know how we don't know the requirements, how they're going to evolve until next summer. But I believe last week and this week, the US has lifted the international ban that was on travelers. But at the same time, all international travelers who are arriving in the United States must provide proof of vaccination. At this point, the requirement is to have a vaccine that is WHO approved vaccine. So that's the requirement that is at this point in place. So yes, people who will come to the United States will have to be vaccinated if they want to participate in the program. We don't know how the requirements will be in the summer. Maybe they will change. Maybe this requirement will disappear. I cannot speak about this, but this is how things stand at this point.
Perfect. Thank you. And so one question about the motivational letter. Could you please tell a little more about the motivational letter? What should be included in it, and how many letters or words should it be?
Sure, I could jump in with this question. So as part of the application, if you go into the application itself, you'll find that you have to submit a motivation letter or an essay. So the essay itself is focused basically focused on what your motivation is for applying to the program, and how you see yourself acting as a Russian ambassador while in the United States, as well as how the program is going to help benefit your future professional goals. So it is 500 words, which for some of you might be a lot, for some of you might be a little, but it is kind of a more concise essay, so you have to kind of pack a lot of information in there. But we just ask you to, be open and honest about how you see yourself coming to the United States and sharing your Russian culture and how you are going to learn more about American culture and share that with Americans, but also how you see the program affecting you in the future. And really what you hope to do with it. But it is 500 words, so just be concise and include all the most relevant information. And it's really up to you to, be creative and include what you want to include, because as Vitaly mentioned, we do get a lot of applications. So I think the motivation letter is a great way to show a lot about your personality and your interest and your passion for the program to make you really stand out, along with your recommendation letter and your resume and all your other accomplishments. So just have fun with it and, be creative and see what you could do. But Vitaly, I don't know if you have any other recommendations.
No, I think you touched pretty well, Zoe. I think, we have probably like 4 minutes left. Maybe we can take, Caroline, 1 or 2 more questions.
Okay. So we have one question about travel. Can finalists travel around the United States, and can they do so on their own or with a host family?
Yeah, absolutely. Participants, when they invest, they can travel around the US during the weekends, during the holidays. Very important, the program has to be aware of the travel, has to approve participants' travel. But we have students on the program currently, and they travel a lot over the weekend and over the holidays. Travel inside the US is allowed. Outside the US, let's say it's not allowed. It's a little bit more delicate usually.
Okay, perfect. And so just a general question about the application. What is the most important part of the application?
Well, very importantly is to have a complete application, submit all the documents. And very important, when you go into the application, to click the button submit. So make sure that when you complete the application, you fill all the forms, you mark it complete. Don't forget to click the button submit, because we have people in the past that they forgot to click the button submit and the application didn't go through. So as a gesture, we went and follow up with those students, checking if they are ready to submit the application. But when you submit the application, please make sure to include all the documents. I wouldn't like to highlight one section or another. The entire application is important. We are looking as a person, as a candidate. So yeah, please complete the application and upload all the required documents.
Okay. Do we have time for one more, or?
Okay, let's take one more.
Okay. So is there a list of colleges and universities that we partner with?
We don't have a list, because we will select the host institutions in spring. So we are running, as we run all for application for students, to select students, the same we are doing for universities. So and universities submit applications expressing interest to work with the program and to host students. So we will have the list of universities sometime probably in April, May, because we will open the call for application for host institutions in January. But you can contact your students, you can follow our webpage, and you can see a tentative list where our students are placed in the United States, like Yana, University of North Georgia. We have colleges in California, Washington State, Massachusetts, New York State, and Midwest. Yeah. I think, Zoe, our time is coming up. Yes, but we want to conclude.
Yep, I think, that's about all the time that we have for today. Thank you all so much for joining us here to learn about the 2020 application, and for all of your questions and comments. If you do have anything that you didn't get to ask, please email us at info@yearofexchange, or go onto our website at yearofexchange.org. We also have a Facebook and VK page that you could visit as well. But I think that's all for today. So thank you all so much. And thank you again to the American Center Moscow.